Good afternoon, shipmates. I'm Helen Gottlieb,
I'm Steven Serbst.
and this is our project on the effects of smoke exposure and inhalation on firefighters. Both of us are EM students and intend to work in the fire service. I have been a firefighter for coming on 4 years now, and it's evident through spending time in firehouses that many firefighters get cancer, and almost everybody has felt either short-term or eventually will feel the long-term effects of smoke exposure.
And for me, many of my family members are firefighters, and it's evident that they show effects from the smoke through the short-term illnesses they have. So for our thesis, it is firefighters' exposure to smoke particles at work contributes to the inherently dangerous to life and health status of their job.
These pictures, although they seem similar, the one on the left is from mid-century and shows the furniture, which would have been made of wood and more naturally derived products, whereas the modern living room has furniture that is almost completely based on oil and plastic products. You'll see in this short video the differences when they burn. The average fire department can respond to a fire in 7 minutes after they've been dispatched. This was the one on the left, the legacy room, is a replica of a mid-century home with mostly wooden products, and the modern room shows a room that would be similar to many of our living rooms with a lot of plastic products. You can see off the bat that the modern room produces black, thick smoke. This is a result of incomplete combustion. That smoke is flammable and extremely toxic. If you were to breathe that in, you would pass out and go unconscious in a matter of seconds. You can see the legacy room is still in its incipient stages. The modern room will reach flashover very quickly here, which is when everything in the room simultaneously reaches its ignition temperature, causing a small explosion. This is not survivable. If you are in this room or within 3 feet of this room, you will die of exposure. Whereas the legacy room, we're now 25 minutes into that fire and it can still be put out. It hasn't reached flashover yet.
The exposure frequency in the U.S. every day, 36,151 fires start, and almost all of them are reacted to by firefighters.
At all of these fires, firefighters are exposed to smoke. Depending on what's burning, it produces a different level of toxicity in the smoke, all as a result of the incomplete combustion, which has particles that can be toxic inside of it. Exposure limits are how we measure what's in the air. That firefighter, the orange device that he's holding is called a gas meter, and it measures the different elements. Listed are some of the most common and harmful substances. They're measured in parts per million, which, if you can get a grasp on parts per million, if you look at hydrogen chloride, 0.3 parts per million are allowed according to OSHA guidelines in an 8-hour timeline. If you go to one fire, these elements will all be present up through and past extinguishment of the fire. And so the entire area will be filled with toxic fumes, which means that we will continue to wear SCBA until the air is clear.
The most common things exposed to through smoke exposure are synthetic rubbers, natural fibers, and wooden product finishes. So these things that you're exposed to are almost evident in most likely every single house. And because of that, when they burn, they emit a lot of particles that are not healthy to breathe.
Synthetic rubbers are used in children's toys, carpets, curtains, a lot of furnishings, any indoor, outdoor materials. They produce 1,3-butadiene, which is extremely toxic and a known carcinogen. Basically, when this burns, it's like melting a plastic bag in a fire. Everybody knows you're not supposed to breathe in that smoke, but that's what's being produced in the smoke that firefighters are exposed to.
Another common element in smoke is natural fibers. And these are things like insulation that are in the wall that you don't really see burn, but are always burning during a fire. Floor coverings like rugs, construction materials, and furnishing, so like almost all of your furniture. And just like everyday things that everybody has in their house that will burn in a fire.
Wood product finishes. Anything made of wood has been finished with shellac or a like product. When this burns, it not only burns hotter and faster, spreading the fire, but it creates carbon monoxide, hydrogen cyanide, and hydrogen sulfide, which any one of those would lead to smoke and air that you wouldn't want to breathe, but the mix of the three can be fatal.
For the health effects of breathing in smoke, the short-term possibilities include periodic coughing, breathlessness, phlegm, and other cough illnesses, and shortness of breath for the mostly like as the most common one. And for long-term possibilities that you don't really see as evident or as soon as the short term, it's lung cancer, heart disease, and chronic obstructive pulmonary diseases.
One of the things that is just only recently being studied is an increased risk of congenital cardiac defects in the offspring of male firefighters. Firefighters versus cancer. Firefighters have an extremely higher risk than regular civilians of developing cancer. This is from a variety of things, but mostly because there was a lack of health safety information provided to firefighters in the past. Since then, we've developed standard operating procedures for cleanliness and to help combat the risks of becoming ill. One of the standard operating procedures, SCBA, self-contained breathing apparatus, most people know what it is. It limits your air to a fresh tank of oxygen that, if you have a good seal with your mask, should block out the smoke from your upper airway. It's standard for firefighters to wear this on all calls.
Other standard operating procedures include cleanliness, and wipes are made from companies to help get rid of all of the particles that are still on your skin and can be transferred through your skin. And this is just one precautionary element of firefighting that tries to keep you as healthy as can be, but sometimes you can't always get to everywhere.
One of the more recent ways that firefighters have been working to stay healthy is health screens. Some departments are making these standard every year where intensive cancer screening is done, and it has been shown to catch cancer before the signs have become evident, which is helpful when trying to cure yourself. In conclusion, smoke inhalation and exposure contributes to the inherently dangerous and life and health status of the job by exposing us to airborne contaminants that would cause irreversible adverse health effects and can impair an individual's ability to escape from a dangerous atmosphere. This picture shows what it's like in an environment without lights. On the left is how well firefighters' gear can be seen. On the right is what happens when it's a smoke-filled environment, and that's with light smoke. Those are the reflective straps on the SCBA.
These are just some pictures of fires, and to show almost every fire you go to will have an abundant amount of smoke, and there's no really avoiding the particles that are in the air. And it's just to give an idea of how easily it is to get these particles on your skin and how common it is for firefighters to have to deal with this every single day.
One of the pictures that it will come to will show 9/11, and although it was not released to the public at the time, you can see the particles through the air. When those planes hit the Twin Towers, it knocked off the fireproofing from the steel beams, this was